obliged thee to follow me into violence, into an army full of violent men?
That would be me, I expect.
No, that is not what I meant.
Do you think I should say it's all my fault for being a bad influence for Ian?
Forgive me, Ian.
If the spirit moves you to, but personally, I'd advise you and the spirit to stay out of it.
I meant only to say that these regrets had plagued my heart. But now that I see thee with Ian, Rachel, I realize my fears were for naught. For only the spirit could lead the way to such a path. With Ian by thy side, thee hast found love, and therefore a home.
Yeah, I think any of the Jamie, young Ian scenes, they're sort of a combination of a huge emotional kind of obstacle that Ian usually needs to come across, and sometimes even Jamie comes across, has to come across too. So filming that scene with Sam, you know, I said today that it was kind of surreal because it sort of felt like how far we've come with our characters on their journey. Here he is giving permission, basically, you know, to go get the girl, to follow his heart. And for Ian, you know, without his father present, Jamie is the next closest thing to that kind of father figure. So it means the world to him to just have that moment where they get to both celebrate and be happy about something for once.
Yeah, I think Rachel and Denny are kind of like a two-man band, and they've been very self-sufficient, and they love each other a lot, and you know they've really been there for each other. But Denzel is away at war. She's been kind of brought into this second family, and I think it means everything to her. She's, you know, a very loyal person, and I think that she really appreciates and respects the way that the Frasers all kind of deal with each other. I think she's got a lot of respect for Claire and looks up to her a lot. Not only, you know, medically and professionally, but in terms of her as a matriarch. And I think that any advice that Claire gives, I think Rachel is going to kind of cling on to. And I think that, you know, Rachel's parents aren't around. So the day of the wedding, I think, you know, seeking that comfort in Claire brings her a lot, especially because she doesn't know if Denzel will even make it to the wedding. And she might be totally without any of her family. So I think that Claire really takes her under her wing in a way that Rachel really appreciates it. Rachel is thrilled that Denzel has made it, because not only does that mean that he's here and he gets to experience this moment with her, but it also means that he is okay and he is safe. You know, she probably wouldn't have heard from him for a little while. He's kind of on the front lines. So I think that him being there means everything to her. They're so close. And I think that he obviously wasn't always pro her choice. So I think that even him coming means a lot. Obviously, his speech is then a little bit unideal in terms of the kind of vibe that he brings to the function, but he brings it back, and it ends up being like a really lovely touching moment. For I think it's a bit touch and go for a minute where she's like, could have just stayed at war. Okay.
It's a little pointed from him for sure. I think Ian's probably a little offended by the whole thing, but he kind of does have a point. You know, Ian's not he's a bit of a trouble magnet. And so I think deep down, Ian is emotionally mature enough to understand that this is coming from a place of care and worry for his sister. Yeah, maybe the spirit didn't have to move him so intensely. Could have been an email. I mean, Izzy, you can answer as well, but I think it's quite an exciting surprise for Ian. There's always been this fiery quality to Rachel, which I think is what's attracted him from the very beginning to her energy. And so surprising, yes, but in other ways, maybe not so much. we started off that scene like imagining it being like a present being unwrapped, and there was an excitement of like what were they going to see when, you know, they were totally vulnerable with each other. And I think that present maybe initially catches Ian a little off guard, but he's thrilled that someone is so up for having fun the way that he is.
Yeah, I think that, you know, obviously because she's a very devout Quaker and this will be her first time with a man in that way, you know, normally we see that storyline being a woman is very nervous and shy and worried it's going to hurt and all these other things. And I think that, you know, she does have all those fears, but I think she loves Ian and she trusts him. And, you know, they've had quite a prolonged engagement at this point. And I think that she has quietly been raring to go. I think she loves him and she wants to start a life with him, and she's quite an unfazed person. She's very feisty, and I think that she's very strong-willed, and I think that it's an exciting new chapter of her life that she's ready to jump into. But yes, she is not phased in the slightest, which was a bit of a surprise to me. But I think that, you know, they end up having a lot of fun together in that scene, and we see so much of their relationship in that moment. That kind of, it can be very sweet and adorable, but also fun and playful. And, you know, he tries to make her laugh because he's trying to break the tension in case she's nervous. She's not, but it's so nice that he does that for her, and that's their way of navigating through that situation together. Like, I think it's really sweet to see them kind of like stumble through that together. You can't really know until the day that it's gonna be that lighthearted and fun. I think that me and John had talked a lot about what we wanted for that scene and what we wanted for those characters, but like us as actors, you know, if on that day we'd felt really unsafe or, you know, uncomfortable or not comfortable with each other or whatever it was, that would have bled into the scene. But I think that because me and John are really close and we're really good friends and we have so much trust with each other, that it meant that we were able to kind of push those boundaries a bit more as actors. And I think that our friendship kind of bled into that scene with their friendship, and I think that that's like a really special thing. And, you know, you can't really know until the day. Obviously you rehearse a lot, but you can't really know until the day that that's definitely going to be the way that it plays out. And I think that we're very lucky that we got to do the scene together, because I know that I had a really fun time and it could have easily not been fun, but we giggled a lot, as Rachel and Ian would have done, and I think that we ended up making something that is very sweet.
Yeah, I'm super proud of it as well, and I kind of echo everything Izzy said there. You know, occasionally in life you come across people that you have great chemistry with, and that was something that Izzy and I had from the beginning. So yes, there was nervousness due to the context of the scene, and yes, there was pressure, but every day's a bit of pressure on a show like this, you know. So these scenes, actually, we get a lot of time with beforehand, which is a great sort of change in the industry as a whole. And then having Vanessa come on and be our mediator as our intimacy coordinator really meant that we were going into that scene as prepared as we could be, and with such a clear idea of the story that we wanted to tell, that it allowed the scene to breathe and for us to breathe with it and find these moments of lightheartedness, which I think ground the scene. Yes, it gives us its sweetness. Yes, it gives its adorableness. But those like light-hearted giggles, smiles, am I doing this okay kind of questions, really give it a very real feeling for two characters exploring each other's bodies for the first time. A lot of flashes of them like this throughout the season so far, but because the scenes that we've seen them in have been such high stakes because of the world that they exist in, this is the first time that I think you get to see them really relax with each other and see maybe parts of what their dates have been like, you know, and these sorts of things. Like the stakes are always so high in Outlander, that actually a scene like this can feel quite relaxing in a way, which is maybe a bit crazy to say because it's the first time that you're, you know, being intimate with somebody. But because it comes from such a joyous place of them both wanting to be there and wanting to do this and make each other happy. And yeah, I think it beautifully demonstrates their chemistry as characters. And I agree. I think that it will set the tone for just how much they are couple goals and really truly love each other. And not saying that that might never be tested again. That is life. But at the moment, you know, this is a very solid couple and people should feel safe with them on screen.
It's so right what you're saying about like every other scene we've seen up until this point, they're like either on the brink of war or they're telling each other something really intense and personal, and like it's never just been two people hanging out. And I think that now we see what their life would be like behind closed doors when they're at home together, not just in this episode but in future episodes when, you know, it's them in the morning together or them when Ian's coming home from work. You know, it's kind of that normal everyday stuff that you see as a couple, and you see them kind of establishing their kind of habits and their boundaries and their kind of those everyday rhythms of life as a couple. And I think that it's just as important to see that stuff as it is to see those like high status moments. So I think it's like nice to see behind that curtain a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think for Ian saying that to Rachel, that is him showing his willingness to compromise and to find a path forward that suits them both. I think Ian's a bit more of a realist when it comes to the situation at hand. He realizes that, yes, that is all good to live your life by and to say, but the reality of the situation that I might face in the future, I've had to make life and death decisions before. And as much as I want to promise you that, and in that moment he does, there comes a moment which echoes something that happened not that long ago, where he realizes, I think it does fundamentally change Ian a little bit. Like, it does make him a little easier to forgive someone for a particularly like violent like moment. But the minute that he sees any sort of doubt, I think he recognizes that in himself, and that's how he justifies going after it, because he's like, no, I'm not going to let something like this happen again. But that inner turmoil, Ian's such a fan of inner turmoil. He loves a bit of inner turmoil. So you'll see that you'll see them work out continuously that difference in point of view and difference in experiences. It's not all black and white as much as they might want it to be.
Yeah, this is definitely the kind of the beginning of their wrestling with this difference. You know, it's something that very much continues. And I think that Rachel really appreciates all of Ian's promises, but at the same time, like, she is a realist and she knows that he will have to make hard decisions. And I think if anything, she worries that because he's promised her this, it will put him more in danger and more at risk. And then how will she live with the repercussions of that fact? And I think that, you know, I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I think, you know, that they're about to start their lives together, and I think that they're really at the beginning of what is hopefully a very long road, like decades long. And I think that, you know, they're looking for those next steps that a young couple would look. Maybe that's starting a family, maybe that's figuring out whether they will live and exist after this war. And I think those are all exciting things, but I think all of those things are actually too hard to even think about and consider right now, because I think, you know, there's an impending battle that's about to happen, and all Rachel can think about is him coming back safe. And I think actually for now, all that they can think about is this war being over before they can even let themselves start thinking about the kind of happy future, because it still feels like it's all hanging in the balance so much.
Totally. I'd also say that I'm just happy to see Ian be happy and find a home of his own. He's been torn away from everyone he's loved his whole life, that to see him finally create a home of his own, I think is just really special. And that's what I'm most excited to kind of see continue and see the lengths that he's going to go to. to protect that home. Because he's everyone's favorite warrior.